Okay, good morning, everybody. So my name is Mr. Anello. This is my first crack at doing a live session with multiple classrooms involved. So you'll have to just bear with me. We're going to walk through this nice and slow, and just to make sure everybody has a chance to complete the steps that we need. The platform that we're going to use today is called Microsoft Makecode. It's a free online tool that allows you to modify or create a game with a bit of an 80s retro style. Teachers, you'll know what that means, and maybe you can explain that to your students after. But you can actually make arcade games with that little 80s retro style. Students, you can modify any existing games that are part of the library, and if you scroll down, you'll be able to see some of those. And what you can do is you can just hop into any one that you want, open an example, and then remix it for yourself. Or like the one we're going to do today, we're going to walk through some tutorials. So today, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build a maze game, and I think this is a really nice, neat one to show because it actually covers a lot of elements of the Microsoft Makecode platform. Now, the tutorials are a little bit more focused in the environment, so don't follow me right now, but I'm just going to open up a new project just to show you what it looks like as a blank canvas. And you'll notice that there are going to be more categories, as if you were going to go make your own game from scratch, not following a tutorial, you're actually going to see a lot of the categories, if not all of them, on the left-hand side here. And there's a lot of different blocks here. There's even advanced and extensions, and there's a lot of different things that you can add on to your environments. But for today, when we get into the activity, it actually focuses the blocks to only what we need, so that it's not an overwhelming kind of view for everybody. What we're going to do at the end is, after we're done sharing, completing or creating our game, we're going to have an opportunity to share your games with your classmates by copying a link and then pasting it into a Google Classroom question if that's been created ahead of time. If not, that's okay. We can figure out a different way. Maybe your teacher can create a Google Doc and you can all paste it in there. But I'll show you how to do it anyways, and then for future, you'll be able to do this later on. So let's get started here and jump right into the activity. So today's activity is under tutorials, and if you use this right arrow on the far right, you're going to find maze, which is the last one. So if you click on that, I want you to start the tutorial, and then we'll just get started right away. So the object of this tutorial is you're actually going to see, like in this little animated GIF here, you're going to actually create a maze with walls that your character or anybody playing your game has to escape out of in a certain amount of time. So we're going to be able to figure out how much time we're going to allow players to get out through our code, and we get to design the maze however we want. So we're going to spend some time in designing that maze because it'll take a little bit of time in thinking about what we want that to look like. So if you want to click start, and we'll jump right in. Hands up, everybody's okay so far?
Sorry, Peter, it's Mrs. D'Agostino, Rhonda. I'm joined a couple minutes late. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm just handing out my iPads, and I need to tell my students what they're going into.
So the iPads, will have to probably use the link in the chat. In a browser, it should work. And then you'll just follow along with the rest of what I'm doing here.
Okay, so have them go into Google Classroom and go through that, press that link that I set up for them that you asked us.
That's right, same difference, yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Sorry about that. We're starting now, sorry.
Okay. So again, I'll monitor. I have to repeat. Oh, gee, okay. So think there's an option here. Ms. Plowski, if you want it in your Google Meet, there's turn on captions in the bottom right. I know it may not be the best option because your sound isn't working. If you wanted to just use our computer sound to try and get as much over the sound as possible. But yeah, I can't troubleshoot. That's the one thing that I was worried about with these sessions, is to troubleshoot with what's happening in the class. But like I said, I'll do my best to go as slow as I can for you to follow along. Hopefully that works. Okay. So you'll notice once you open up the arcade environment, you're going to notice a couple of things, especially in a tutorial. On the left-hand side here, this is called a little simulator of. Does anybody know the name of this toy from the probably 80s, maybe 90s, probably 80s? Students, do you know what that looks like? Game Boy, that's right. So again, referring back to that 80s style retro game, there's a directional pad, up, down, left, right, and an A button and a B button. I'll show you how to do to control those using your keyboard as well, so you don't have to use your mouse and come over here. So anyways, there are a lot of options here. You can stop your program with the stop. You can press triangle to press play, and and if you leave that on, it'll always be displaying what you're programming in your workspace. Which brings me to my next spot. This is your workspace, and I'll just make this as big as possible for the session. This is where we're going to code. And with the tutorials, what happens is the tutorials come with step-by-step instructions in the top. Now, what I want to do is try and explain these blocks to you so you're not just dragging and dropping without understanding what's happening. So, but the nice thing is, maybe for you, Ms. Plowski, is you can follow along with these step-by-step instructions if students may have missed, or if they're if they've fallen behind, or if they want to go ahead, I guess. They can feel free to walk through here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get a character into our game. So in the tutorial it says first thing we need to do is find the set my sprite to in Sprites. So they're going to try and color code these as much as possible. So this is blue. And if we go over here to the left-hand side under Sprites, we're going to find the set my sprite block. And this is what we need to just click on once. And then just like a puzzle, you need to just snap it into the on start block. And that's our first step. If you want to hit next, you can feel free. The next thing, oh yeah, the other thing that I was going to mention is there's a little light bulb up here, and that's a hint or a tip. What I'm going to challenge the students to do is not click on that light bulb to see the answers of what I'm trying to explain. I want you to try and follow along with the instructions so that you get familiar with the environment. So next thing we need to do is actually draw your character. So in this block right here, we have set our sprites to this, whatever this block is. Now, if I click on this, a two-dimensional kind of painting canvas allows you to draw in blocks, kind of like that Minecraft feel. You can actually draw using kind of square edges, any type of character that you want. If you left-click on a color, it'll change to your primary color. If you right-click on a color, or a different color, that'll be what it erases to. So if you were to right-click on the painting canvas, this is what would happen. So left-click, right-click controls these two colors. If I want to erase or undo, I can use the undo in the bottom right-hand corner here. I can undo everything that I've done. And now what I want you to do is just maybe spend 2 minutes and draw a character. And I'll just draw a character here as well, just to kind of give you a sense of what's, and it can be anything that you want. You can also choose from the gallery. in the top. So there's a gallery as well. You can actually choose a character that's already been preloaded into this environment. But I want you to just maybe spend a couple minutes, try and draw a character just for fun, so that you can kind of make it a custom character of your own. So let's zoom out here. There we go. And again, if you have any questions, just I don't have middle. There we go. Pop them into the chat if you have any questions. I know it's pretty fancy. Look forward to seeing all of your creations later as well, because I'm going to ask for some of these links later from your teacher. Let's see here. Right click, right click. Well, that's not really a character, but oh. So I'll wait for hands up from the teachers just before I move on. I don't want to spend too much time here, but at the same time, I want the students to have a small window of time to create their character for their maze, or choose one. It's up to them. So feel free to just leave your hand up, teachers, until they're all up, and then we'll move along. Students, if you're not finished your character, that's okay, because I'm just going to show you once I click done, I can always come back to my character and I can always change it at a later time. So maybe click done in maybe 10 seconds or so. And then if you want to, you can come back and change it later, just so we can make sure we have time to get through the game creation. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Miss P, Miss B, you okay? Okay, thank you. 2 more. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next step. Again, if you have to, you can come back and change your characters at any time. Even after your code's done, you can come back and change that. So the next step is, now that we've created our character, we want to make sure that we can use the controller or the controls of the game console or whatever it is to move our character around. And what we're going to do is head over to the controller category on the left-hand side. And we're going to just pop out the one block of move your sprite with those buttons. So if I just drag that in, and it says put it right under the set my sprites block. Now, if you come over here and just click on your game, you can actually use the controller and your character will move around. Okay, so that's all we have so far. We don't have any buttons doing anything just yet, but just up, down, left, right. On your keyboard, you can also use up, down, left, right as well to move your character. And the other option is just in if you're left-handed, I guess, if you wanted to use W for up, S for down, and A and D, W, A, S, D. Those are your up, down, left, right keys on the other side of the keyboard as well. So it depends on who you are, but also if you get into building two-player games, you need to have two ways of controlling your characters. So, but for now, you have those options to move your character around. Okay. So next, what we're going to do, we're just going to create the background, and the background is going to be the maze. So what I would need you to do now is go under the scene block right here. Oops, sorry. The scene block category. And we want to set our tile map to something. So it's going to, just like our character, it'll default to just a gray square. But if I click on that and just bring it under the move block, these are the 3 blocks that you should have in your code by now. Your character can move with the keyboard buttons or the game control buttons, and now our tile map. Nothing's been set yet. So again, just like our character, we have to click on the gray little box to open up the different options. And this is where we get to kind of get creative in what we want our maze to look like. So by default, and I'm going to ask you to keep it at these this size, you have a 16 by 16 pixels or size of a backdrop. Now you get into some different gallery tiles for your backgrounds. And now part of this tutorial, if you go on the left-hand side here, you'll be able to see 3 different themes of blocks, as well as just a miscellaneous area. I'm going to stick with forest just because that's the forest, but you also have different, you have dungeon tiles, you have aquatic for the water, which is not really blue, but it's okay. Excuse me. And you also have miscellaneous. So miscellaneous will just be a mix of everything that you can use. You can use roads. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose forest, and I'm going to show you a couple things before I give you some time, and we're going to spend a good chunk of time designing our maze. In the forest, you just click on the tile that you want with your left click. It'll tell you in the top right here which one you have selected, and then you can just click and drag and fill it up as much as you want. A shortcut, if you wanted to use maybe your whole maze to be this as your base, you can come over here and you'll notice that there's a fill. So there's a couple different options. There's drawing or painting is 1 block at a time. You can draw a rectangle or you can fill. So if I choose fill, and if I click on any tile in my my workspace here on the painting canvas, it'll actually fill up my whole canvas with that tile. Now, if I made a mistake or if I want to fill with something else, I can just choose a different tile and then fill again. And we can kind of play with what we want. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this as I like this idea of having borders of grass around the edge. So I'm just going to choose this as my base. I'm going to fill up my hole. And you don't have to choose this if you don't want to. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make my corners. Oops, I didn't want to fill that. That was my mistake. I got to go back over to the pencil or paint option in the left here. And now I'm just, that's a top right or top left edge. This is a top right edge. It's going to make my map as much as I want it to be. And then I'll paint the edges as well. All the way around. And again, you don't have to do this. This is just what I'm doing. Oops, too far. So we're going to spend about 5-8 minutes or so just on creating your maze. So now that I just created the edges. I'm just going to flip back over to the instructions to make sure I didn't leave anything else. Oh yes, I was supposed to use leave 2 blocks open for my start and my finish. So you have a start. You have to basically tell the game, where do you want your character to start every time? And you also have to tell your game what's the finish line, because we're going to then say we're going to program the game to, whenever we hit start, it goes to the start block, and then if they touch the finished block or finishing block, then they'll be able to, you can say, congratulations, you win, some music, some fun things like that. So I'm just going to go back into my editor, and under my erase block right here, I'll have my character start here and maybe finish right here. I'm just going to leave those two blank. So take some time, design your background. The one thing you also have to do is think about your maze as well. So in a maze, there are walls, and the walls you have to kind of create on your own, and think about that design. So if I'm starting here, for example, maybe I'll create a wall like this, maybe like this. Think about that maze game look. So you have to kind of draw it out. If you make a mistake, you can just set your right click and left click tiles here. So I'm just gonna leave this up and draw my my maze. But think about, you have to create some maybe dead ends for your people to go to. But you also have to make sure you plan it out so that they get to the end as well. So get creative, have some fun with this. Maybe I'll just draw my answer first, and then fill in the maze with fun things later. Let's see here. Feel free to ask any questions while we're just taking some time to design our maze. Teachers, if students have any questions, you can put up your hand or type them in the chat, or if you want the student to come to the board or computer to ask, that's up to you. Let's see here. So my maze goes like this, this. Oops, can't do that. That's probably pretty good, I guess. Should have. How is maze creation going in the classrooms? Feel free to turn on your microphones if you'd like to share any thoughts. Excuse me. So I'll give it maybe a couple more minutes, maybe till, let's say 10 o'clock. 4 more minutes, just to give your students a gauge of time so that we can, we still have a little bit of coding left to do before our game is finished. So we have to tell our program that these walls are in fact walls. Ms. P, is that a question, or you're okay? That's just from previous. Yeah. What else can I be doing? What's the other thing I could be doing? So this is what I mean by the walls not knowing that they're walls. See, right now, my character can go everywhere. So we have to make sure that we tell the program that these are actually walls, so you can't walk over them. This is actually, this program as it is right now, if you look at my full screen, this is actually considered a glitch, you know, because this is supposed to be a wall, but I'm actually able to walk through it. I shouldn't be able to do that. A neat thing about that, well, that's the other thing. My character, if I click down, my character's off the screen. I don't want my character to go off the screen. I want the character or the screen to make me move around. Just like in video games, the camera follows your character as you're moving around the scenes. So that's what we want to code into our program to make sure that we don't lose sight of our character. So I'll just get out of full screen here. Maybe 1 more minute or so. Let's see here, my maze. And to keep you in that screen, you can actually stay into the Paint canvas, the Paint editor. What I'll do is I'll go to the next instruction, so you can, because the next few steps we're actually doing in the painting, in the background of painting. So the next step is actually to define a block to start your maze, and also to end your maze. So what you need to do is just choose 2 different tiles that are in your gallery. You can choose something from a different icon too, it doesn't matter. But we just have to, the computer needs to know, or the game needs to know where to put that character, and it can only be 1 tile that's different from everything else. So I remember using, this for my start, or something different. So I'm just gonna put this as my starting block. And then maybe we'll put a treasure, maybe a treasure at the end. How's that? So again, 2 different blocks, 1 for start and 1 for end. And they have to be different than anything else on your map. Okay, so that is the next step. So while you're designing, make sure you follow those instructions in finding 2 completely different blocks separate from your maze. Oh, they actually didn't see these blocks yesterday. Oh yeah, there we go. Stairs, that's a good one too. Stairs to get out. Very neat. Yeah. And then there's one more step just while we're in here. Okay, I'll go back. Okay, so by now you should have a good start, or if you're finished your maze, that's where we're at right now. Again, you can always come back and you can make those changes later, but we're just for the sake of time, we're going to make sure we get through this activity. The next step is to put that character on the start block every time that the game runs. So we have to go back to the scene category. So get out of your, if you just click done on your painting canvas and come back to your code, we have to grab another block, which is place my sprite on top of random in the scene block. So if I go to scene, place my sprite on top of random block. So I'm just going to grab one of those. I'm going to put that into the start. But then instead of just a random block, we have to go choose the block that we actually used as my start. So when you choose this from the drop-down menu at the end there on top of random drop-down block here, go find that block that you defined in your program as the starting point. And it should show up on your list of icons here. So I've chosen this to be my start. And you'll notice that every time you make a change to your code, it starts again. And you'll notice that in my character here, it jumped right to the start block that I said that I wanted it to. Okay. The next step is you'll notice that the Game Boy screen right now is only showing a corner of the map. And I talked about the camera following your character. So what we need to do next is tell the program to follow my sprite as I'm moving throughout the scene. So if I go back to the scene blocks group, there's actually just a block that says camera follow sprites. Now, in a more advanced program, you may have more than one sprite. So that's why there's an option here to choose a different one. But for our game right now, we only have one. So if you just click on that and drag it into the start, it'll reset. And now if you notice, so you notice that when I'm moving, camera's actually following my character around. So it's really neat. You've actually just made a really good chunk of your game right now by making a background bigger than the screen, and your camera is actually following your character. It's really, really cool. So then basically what we're going to do now is tell or define that event of your program of when your character reaches the end that the game or that your character has won or has beaten the time. So we have to go back to our scene blocks and find a block that says on sprite of kind player overlaps at location. And what does that mean? So this means that when my sprite overlaps or goes on top of or near that block, something happens inside. So if I actually click on this, it's not a piece of the puzzle. It's actually a separate part of our program. So I'm just going to put it below. And you might have room to zoom out or zoom in using the bottom right zoom plus or minuses, or you can just you can actually move to the side if you need to as well. I'm just going to put mine at the bottom. So that's all we're doing right now. We're just dragging that block out, and now we have to choose the tile that's the end of my maze. So if I actually pull this down, the end of my maze is a treasure chest. You'll have to remember what the end of your maze is. So when my sprite reaches that treasure, something's going to happen. And whatever happens is we're going to tell it. We're going to say what happens inside of this little start block. So when that happens, basically the game is over. If your character beats the clock and reaches that, we have to say the game's over. My character has reached the game finish line. And it's saying, let's go into the game category of blocks and choose game over. But we didn't lose. We actually won. So if you actually click on this little toggle is what it's called, you're going to switch it from lose to win. And then you can, music actually plays by default. I wonder if I can actually play it for you. You're not going to be able to hear my screen, I don't think. No, because I'm not sharing audio in this tab. But if I were to, I may have heard that or not. But so by default, that's all it is. A screen shows up, says you won, and you've played some music. To escape, you have to press A, which is this little button right here. And what's also neat about that is you can actually make this a little bit more interesting. If you click on this little plus symbol beside win, you can actually have a little animation as well. So if I wanted to do some confetti for winning, let's just see what happens. You can play with this a little bit too. You don't have to do this right now, but feel free to explore. It's just resetting. There we go. So if I go over to my block, my finish line, confetti flies in the background. It's just a little animation you can add. Not necessary, but something you actually get to customize at your own choice. So now this is where you have to kind of decide how long is it actually going to take to finish my maze. First, we're going to get the timer in. And the timer will start on the start, the start countdown block is found under the info block of blocks right here. Start countdown, and we're supposed to put that in there under the start. So anything that happens on start happens when the game resets. So you'll notice my timer is actually starting right now, and you'll notice what happens when it hits 0. The game is over because you didn't reach the finish line before the timer was done. So I'm actually just going to stop my program there so it doesn't happen again until the next step. And you can change that time later, but right now we're just going to leave that block there. The problem now is that we haven't really told the program what walls are, because right now we can actually move through everything. And we have to go back to our tile, our background, and tell the background what are walls. So now if I click on my backdrop, so go back into the start menu under Set Tile Map 2 and click on your background and bring up your maze. Over here on the left-hand side, there's an icon that's walls. So I need you to click on this icon right now. It says Draw Walls. And what happens is you're just going to click on wall wherever you've said there's going to be walls in your maze. You just have to just go over those walls with the draw walls block. It'll highlight them in red. And what happens when you do that, your character can no longer go on top of these blocks. So it's actually a real maze now. So just take a minute to highlight your walls with the Draw Walls icon right here again on the left-hand side. And they'll be highlighted red or pink, I guess. Red, pink. As defining walls in your program. And this is essentially our last step of finishing our game. A neat little trick that you want, if you want to, I don't know if you've ever played games where there are some codes you can put into your game so that things happen to the game that make it maybe easier, or shortcuts. So what you could do technically, if you wanted, you can actually make a wall not a wall. And how do I do that? I can't remember how to remove. Remove. Erase. There. So if I wanted to take away a wall where an actual wall looks like there's a wall, it could actually be a pass-through, or what's called a glitch. And if somebody were to find that, it could be a shortcut to the finish line, and it could get there faster. So if I wanted to, I can add this one and this one as a shortcut. And that glitch could be a shortcut for the game if the player actually finds it. But you just don't tell them that that's an option. It's just an option if you want to tell them that, or just to program it in. Usually these types of things aren't in instruction manuals. People just find them. So feel free to make a wall not a wall as a shortcut if you want. And that way it's if they do find it, they can get to the finish line quicker. So we do have a few minutes. I'm just going to make sure everybody has some time to complete this. And then we'll wrap it up by playing the game. So once you are finished making your walls or defining your walls as walls, you can actually click done. Your game will start over, and then you actually can play your game to see if the timing is okay. Because you know the answer or the path to your finish line, you have to see, is 10 seconds a reasonable number to set as my limit? And I'll just play my game to see if that's actually reasonable. So I know my answer. I don't know my shortcut. I'm just playing it. Oh, I hit the wrong button. So maybe 10 seconds is a little bit quick. Maybe I'll just up it to, so then if 10 seconds seems too fast, or if it's too long, if your maze is really short, you can adjust your time accordingly. I'm going to change mine to 15 seconds, play it again, and see what happens. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to try 15 seconds. Okay, Misty, I see your message there. No problem. It's recorded, so you can pull it back up and watch after your break. Okay, yeah, no problem, Misty. Like I said, I'll share the video with you later. So if you don't get to it right away, I'll share the video recording back, and you can follow along with the rest of what I'm going to show. Same with you, Miss P. If you have a break or a recess, we talked about that. Same options available if you have to leave early, or if anybody has to. So my game, I have 3 seconds left. I'll give players 3 extra seconds to try and get there, and that's fine. But I'll finish this part of the instruction, and then you can come back and change those things. Just so, like, I'm looking at the time. We have 15 minutes left of scheduled time. What you can do now, if you click on Finish, you're going to have the option to share your project. And this is where you'll be able to copy the link to your projects. I'm just going to stop this. How do I stop it? Oh, it's going to beep. That's okay. So I'm going to call this Mr. Anello's Crazy Maze. I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to give it a, if I wanted to, you can actually create a little animated GIF for your project. So when people come to it, it's like a little icon that animates. So if you wanted to, you can actually restart, hit record, and use your arrow keys. And that'll be a little animation that appears when you share your project, which is kind of cool. You don't have to do that, though. But to share your project, You just click over here to say publish project. And this is a link that you're going to copy. If I want to copy this link, and then if you head over to your Google Classroom, let's see here. If your teacher has created a question, it'll look like this. Oh. Question. Anyway, students, if you go to your question, you'll be able to paste your link as your answer and turn it in or submit it. Here's an example of one that I set up ahead of time. So when you click on somebody else's, it'll look like this, and it'll bring up the whole player. And then your classmates can play your game, and they can actually see the code if they want. If they want to show the code, they can go in and take a look at what you did. If you want to show the game, you come back out. And but yeah, they get to actually play the game. Oh, this is the wrong. This was a test game that I did. I actually didn't finish it, but they'll be able to actually play it just as we're making right now. So it's a really, really neat way to share your game with your classmates. Otherwise, teachers, you can create a Google form or a Google Doc, and however you want to do it, you can get those links from this screen from your students, and then you can allow them to click on everybody else's game to play. So that is essentially the what I wanted to show. I'll just put my computer back on. If there's something else that you guys want to see or play with, there's like 12 minutes left of our time. So there is time. You do back up to finish me. Sorry, some of you missed where to save. Okay. So there's no saving. That's the funny thing. So saving in this arcade game is in the bottom left-hand side. So under right here. Okay, so once I clicked finish, I have to go back to the tutorial, but if you click finish, or if you didn't click finish, if you're past that point, there's a share icon in the top left. Actually, I better go back to the tutorial, but you have to click finish in the tutorial in the top, and then you'll basically exit out of the tutorial. At that point, let me just go back and I'll finish. I'll show you what that means. Let's see here. No, that's not it. Tutorial. I'll just start the tutorial again. And I'll jump to the last screen because it exited out. So if I go back to the last block, congratulations. Okay. And if I click finish, so once you walk through all of these dots in the top here, the last one is 13. And if you click finish, the project name comes up. It basically kicks you out of the tutorial part where that banner at the top isn't there anymore. And you give your project a title. Mr. A's projects. And allows you to publish the projects. Oh, I don't need the project. So publish projects. And then it gives you a link. Once I copy that, it'll say the link is copied. And then once I X that out, now I'm back to the Makecode environment that has all of the different categories like I showed you at the beginning. The tutorials just focus on the basic elements of what we wanted to show. If this is what you're seeing, you need to click on share in the top left, and the same link shows up here where it says publish project, and the link comes up again. Okay, so now saving comes back here. So if I go back to if I exit out of the tutorial, I don't see the tutorial banner anymore. You'll now see a place where you have a file name and a little icon right here where it's like a floppy disk. That's where you click save. your project has been saved, and then what will happen is it'll always be there under your projects. So if I go back to my home in the top left, you'll see that the projects will be here. It's a good idea to get what you've saved, get what you've done today as a link, at least to share. And then the students can maybe bookmark it for later, because there technically isn't, unless they use the same device, if they were to use a different device at home, they wouldn't be able to pull these up under My Projects. It's actually stays on the project. There isn't like a file that you can save to your Google Drive or anything like that. But what you can do is get that link and get that game link to what you've created, and then you can go back and edit the code. So at least you have something to work with in that way. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's kind of a funny system in that regard in terms of saving projects, but there is a way to always get your project back if you just save that link somewhere. And whether it's Google Classroom or a Google Doc, or if they want to bookmark it, bookmarking the link is relatively easy as well. Just at the top of your address bar, if you wanted to, you can actually save the, oops, let's see here. You can actually bookmark this, the link that you just created, and it'll actually remember the file name. So there's a couple different ways you can do that in terms of saving. So let's see here, Mr. Nell's crazy names. So yeah, like I said, once you finish the tutorial banner in the top, across the top here, it kicks you out of the tutorial, and then it'll be, if you missed a step, or if you don't have all of this code in here, it'll just be up to you or the students to go back into the tutorial itself and learn or watch this video again, because I'll be posting this onto the portal right after this once it's been processed. So you can always watch or pull up a section of this video to show your students later. Does the answer, so yes. Ms. Benison, does that answer? Ms. Castiglione, does that answer your questions? Please show us one more time the number of ways to be able to go to their games. Well, once they click on home, actually, I have to get out of here. Once they exit the tutorial, they'll be able to, the screen changes a little bit, and then if they click home, the project will be under My Projects on the device that they're on right now. So they have to just go back into that, find the project that they just created. And if they want to, they can share that project. Give it a title. And then you just have to click publish and then copy this link. This link allows you to go for the students to share it with their friends, but also to go back in and fix it up if they want to. So I'm going to paste that link that I just copied. It'll bring me to the game view of that game. But at the top here, here's edit code. So I can actually go back and edit the code that I created. So there's no real way of saving projects, really. What you can do, though, is if students have one of these devices, if they click on the download link in the bottom left, you can actually download these games to an actual physical gaming console. And these are just some examples of what's available on the market. We don't have any of these at all. We're just using the simulator online. But if it's something that's, oops, you can mute this as well if you wanted to. But yeah, these are options. If they wanted to, they can buy them, and they can walk around with these little games, playing the game that they made. Yeah, it's really cool. So again, like I said, we don't have these on hand, but it's something that they can explore and take with them however they like in the future. So yeah, I just downloaded, because I clicked on one of the devices, it downloaded the file for that device, which I don't have. But actually, I'm going to try. What I'm going to do is just because we're here, I'm going to import that project and see what happens. And choose file. That does work. Okay. Well, maybe it does work. It'll actually always recognize the file. I just learned something new. So I guess an option would be to download the file and drag it into their Google Drive if they'd like to. So what happens is on my computer, there's downloads, or on Chromebooks, it'll be downloads as well. They can just drag that into their drive and import it later if they're using a different computer. I'll maybe make a little video on how to do that as a separate video, and I'll post that on the portal for you guys to share with your students. Any other questions at all? Comments? Hopefully everyone had time to get some of the basics of their game created today. It's an interesting platform. It has it's one of those low floor, high ceiling opportunities where you can start with basic, or you can make this a really, really crazy maze. Like, for example, if I wanted to click on my map and change in the bottom left here, if I wanted to change my size from 16 to, if I double both those numbers to 32 by 32, you'll notice that you can make this map as big as you want. So students, take with this what you want. So you can make your maze super long. You can add different components or levels of your game, and you can have different files. So anyways, really, really interesting thing that Microsoft Makecode allows you to do in terms of an arcade type of simulator. And hopefully you've enjoyed this session, and leave any questions with your teacher if you do have any. And what I can do is maybe follow up with you either in person or just in a one-on-one classroom type of virtual meeting to follow up with next steps. Awesome. Nice to hear, Ms. Benison. And feel free to share me some examples of your students' work, even just by email or a Google Doc with your links. And I'm curious to see what your students have come up with in their mazes. So, okay, so I'll end the recording now. And if you are all set, feel free to just log off, and hope everybody has a great day. And if I'm going to see you later this week and during another session, that's awesome. If not, there'll be some future opportunities for doing these types of live coding sessions throughout the rest of the year. And I'll try and do different platforms and things like that. So have a great day. We'll remain on the line if you do have any questions.